Okay, so I am going to talk a little bit about U-use, and one of the reasons why I want to talk about this now is because we're transitioning away from narratives, in which you do have some first-person usage, possibly some second-person usage or second-person perspective, which is what this is. U-use is second-person perspective or point of view. And we're moving away from those narratives, and we're moving into expository writing that will require you to be starting to integrate sources with your paper. Part of what we want to see now is the writing will be more formal, ideally more objective, and more focused on a particular audience. So what that means is you may not know this through the first draft, and this is the reason why this is a good exercise. You may not know in particular who your audience might be when you start working on a piece. As you move through that piece, it's going to become more and more obvious who the intended audience should be, and by that point, then you need to start thinking about aiming your language at that person. So if we were doing this as an exercise in class, you would all have these paragraphs in front of you. You would see the example of the first draft of a workshop partner's paper. In this case, it's a compare-contrast that's opening about print versus screen literacy. So in something like this, we want to look for all the instances of U-use that we might see. And so we start off with the first paragraph where I'm giving you background information here, right? Print and ebooks represent two different types of media for doing the same thing, reading. Both print and ebooks have many great features that appeal to different types of readers, from people of different ages to advanced and beginning readers. Because of this, they are likely to coexist for some time into the future. Now, we get to the second paragraph. If you are a true book lover, you will have a book instead of an ebook because print is more powerful than pixels on a screen. When you physically hold a book in your hand, you can flip through the pages of the book, and not only do you see the pages turn, but also you can hear them. You feel you need a physical copy and not just an electronic version of the book. So the first thing we want to do when we see something like this is I'm going to walk us through the first thing you should do when you go through and you're looking for U-use is start to look for all of those instances where you see U-use actually in the paper. Anytime you see you or your or you are, right? The contraction you are. So what we have then here is you've identified now U-use. This is something you're likely to see from me in feedback, where I will just circle uses of you. Now, what you need to do then is to figure out how are you going to figure this out? How are you going to fix this U-use so that you don't potentially alienate an audience or you don't introduce an ambiguity? So in this first sentence, there's a couple of different strategies you can use, but you can just remove the if you and just go with true book lovers will have a book instead of an ebook because print is more powerful than pixels on a screen. That might be a debatable point, and that might be something that as a workshop partner you would say, okay, so where's the evidence that print is more powerful than pixels, right? But at least then you've narrowed down the statement to something specific, concrete, and now you can start to address whether or not the details are there. And also when you physically hold a book in your hand, well, we've already been talking about true book lovers, right? Right here. Well, that's a perfect audience identifier, right? So maybe true book holders physically hold books in their hands because they can flip through pages and maybe see and feel the pages turn, right? See, feel, hear, introduce all of the sort of sense modalities as a list, right? So that's the way you could write around that. Next, you feel you need a physical copy and not just an electronic version of the book. Well, true book lovers are going to prefer books to tablets or phones or Kindles or Nooks or any other kind of device that you're going to see attached to that. This paragraph in particular is going to be focused on true book lovers. Now, because it's a compare contrast, what I would expect to see in the next paragraph is somebody who wants to talk, or somebody who is a screen reader rather than a true book lover. Okay, and then all the reasons why a screen reader would prefer screens to books. Okay, so this is a good exercise, especially after a first draft, because first drafts are where we typically, before we've identified the audience, either the audience who's going to read this or the specific group that we're writing about. So if you identify your audience, you have less of a chance of alienating them. If you identify who you're talking about, then there's less of a chance of ambiguity slipping in to the writing. So it makes it more concrete and it makes it more directed to the reader. Okay, so what you're going to do now is you're going to find a paragraph in your own first draft, or if you've already started working on the second paper, find a paragraph here where there's a lot of you use, post that, and then write about how you're going to, or maybe rewrite the paragraph eliminating you use, and then talk about how you're going to do that. Okay, so I'll have some more specific instructions on that, but that's what we're doing for this week.